Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Jen McManamon about her ceremony at East Plaza Garden inside Magic Kingdom with a reception at California Grill. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how she chose these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Jen.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being on the show today. I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you and your fiancé decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
So there's a fun story here. From the time I was a little girl, had the dream that I was going to get married in front of the castle. And then actually back in 2008, I was engaged and we were planning a Disney wedding at the wedding pavilion, because at that time in-park weddings weren't an option. And 3 months before we were to wed, we actually broke up and called the engagement off. And so my dream got crushed. And I thought, well, I'll never be able to do that now. And then fast forward many years, my now husband proposed in front of the castle, actually, on my birthday. And his quote to me was, "I want to take the tragedy of you losing your dream and make all your dreams come true. So we will have the Disney wedding that you've always wanted, and we'll do it in the park so you can have your castle."
Huh.
So that was kind of how it all came together for the in-park wedding in front of the castle.
That's amazing. How did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
They were thrilled. There was a lot of excitement around a Disney wedding. And then there was even more excitement around being in the park while it was closed and getting to go backstage and kind of all of the little special things that they got to do that, a normal park guest doesn't get to do. So they were absolutely thrilled and super grateful to be able to be there, while I was super grateful that they were flying from New Jersey and other places across the country to be there with me. They were excited to be there too.
How many guests did you invite and how many were able to make the trip?
We invited 50 guests and we had a total of 40 that attended.
That's great. Did you set up a room block for your guests?
We did set up a room block. So we actually had 4 options within our room block. 2 of them were the value resorts. So we had the Pop Century and we had the Art of Animation. And then we offered 1 moderate resort, which was Caribbean Beach. And then we offered 1 deluxe resort, which was the Grand Floridian. And so our thought process on that was we offered choices across the different tiers for affordability and, how families wanted to kind of spend their money while they were on the trip.
I see. Okay. Now, how did you choose the day of the week and time of day for your event? Was it mostly based around using Magic Kingdom for the ceremony?
It was. Yeah, there's a lot of rules around the Magic Kingdom and a lot of back and forth with dates that are available versus not available. So if you want an in-park wedding, you kind of have to have an open mind on your date for the most part. Our final kind of guidance was we'd like to have either a Friday or a Monday so that our guests that wanted to just make a long weekend out of it could do that, rather than the middle of the week where you'd have to travel and miss a lot of work. So we were able to get a Friday, and a lot of our guests flew in Thursday night and then flew out Sunday night. So it was kind of a nice one day off of work, and they got to enjoy all of the festivities and see some parks while they were there.
Got it. And then what time of day did your ceremony start, and did it change when you got closer?
Yes. So our ceremony was scheduled to begin at 7:30 a.m. because it's before the park opens. And we were told that that was subject to change, and it did. So we happened to coincide with spring break this year. So our wedding date was March 14th, 2025, and peak spring break started March 15th, 2025. So 2 weeks before the wedding, they actually bumped us up to start at 7:15 instead of 7:30 because they were opening the park earlier than they had anticipated due to the number of park reservations for the Magic Kingdom that day.
Got it. Okay. How did you choose East Plaza Garden rather than like the train station or an after hours event at Magic Kingdom?
We looked into the train station and it's pretty. It wasn't the castle view that I had always dreamed of. So beautiful view all the way down Main Street, but I wanted to be closer to the castle. And we chose the morning over the evening for our guests' sake. We did allow children at the wedding. And so we didn't want to keep kids up until, the start of a ceremony at 2 a.m. because that's what we were looking at if we were doing the evening because of the stipulations of an in-park wedding. They won't start until 2 hours after the park closes. So the dates that we were looking at, the park was closing between 11 and midnight. So we were looking at like a 2 a.m., 2:30 a.m. start time for the ceremony. And we didn't think the kids would be able to tough that out. So we went with the morning. And I have to say, now looking back on it, I'm so glad that that's what we did because we kind of got the best of both worlds. We got photos in the dark because it was so early in the morning, and our ceremony was exactly at sunrise. So if you look at our pictures during the ceremony, the sky changes and the sun comes up. So it worked out perfectly that we did the morning instead of the evening.
Okay. And I know sometimes people are wary of doing a morning East Plaza Garden or train station ceremony because the park opens while you're having your event and they're worried that people are going to be like standing around looking. How did that work for you?
So that did happen. They opened the park and we were halfway through our ceremony, I believed. I have to tell you, in the moment, we did not notice that there was anybody there because you are so in the moment of your ceremony and the fact that you're getting married. So everything else kind of tuned out, and we didn't realize anybody was there until we had our "And You May Kiss the Bride," and we heard a lot more cheering than the guests that we knew we had. And so that was our clue to look around. And we did. And so we did have people that were kind of standing around, but you're in your own area of the East Plaza Garden. So we didn't have any unexpected guests, join the ceremony, but there were some people standing along the perimeter. And it's funny because I'm actually quite shy and did not want to be, a big deal or a spectacle. We ended up being that, but it was, like I said, we were so focused on each other and the ceremony that we didn't even notice there was anybody else there. So I wouldn't get hung up on that if that's something, you're thinking about with the in-park wedding. You're so in the moment that you don't even recognize that people are around.
That's great advice. How did you guys choose California Grill for your reception?
Honestly, it was all about the view. I fell in love with the floor to ceiling windows that overlook the Magic Kingdom and the fact that the castle would be not only in my ceremony pictures, but also in my reception pictures. And the way that they had the room set up, any picture you took that was facing the window, you saw the castle, and the cake was set so that every picture of the cake, you can also see the castle in the background. So it was really about the view when we first booked it. And then we went and ate and figured out that the food was just as good as the view. So we were very happy with our choice.
Got it. How did you guys choose your officiant?
So we actually chose my little brother. And so that was an easy call. We wanted somebody that was close to us. And my brother has been best friends with my now husband for 10 years, and that's how we met. And so we thought it would be appropriate that the person who introduced us was also the person who officiated our wedding. So my little brother got ordained and he officiated the wedding for us.
What a great idea. Did you guys add any kind of entertainment or musicians to the ceremony or the reception?
Booking for the Magic Kingdom ceremony includes a string trio. So we didn't add any additional musicians, but the string trio was absolutely phenomenal. And then at the reception, we did select a DJ from one of Disney's preferred vendor lists. His name was Steve, and he was an absolute pleasure and was able to play every song that we asked for and stayed in communication with our day of wedding coordinators and also with us. If there was anything, special we wanted him to do or any additional songs we wanted him to play. So he was an absolute pleasure. Highly recommend him if you're looking for a DJ from the preferred Disney vendor list.
Great. Okay. Now, I know sometimes people are wary of using California Grill because there's not a ton of flexibility with their menus. How did this work for you guys?
So you are correct. There is very little flexibility with their menus. We did a brunch reception. So we went with what they provided and it was perfect. So our reception was from 8:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. We did it directly after the ceremony. We had bottomless mimosas, and that was a big hit. Our cocktail hour, they did fresh fruit and pastries, danishes, croissants. That was great. The guests raved about that. And then we had a buffet style brunch with, I think we had about 10 different items, and everybody found something that they could eat, and the food was phenomenal. So while the choices are limited, I personally wanted Mickey waffles. That was just one of the, little things that I wanted to add. It's not an option, but they did a chicken and waffle. So I did get my waffle. It just wasn't in the shape of Mickey, but the food was phenomenal. And the selection, their prefix selections had something for everybody. And then there was even an option to order guest meals for vegetarians, vegans, gluten-free, and any other kind of dietary concerns. We could let the chef know. I didn't have anybody in my guests that fell into that category, but I did have a couple of my vendors that requested vegetarian meals, and they were accommodated.
Do you have any cake flavors you would recommend?
So I have to tell you, my cake was a little bit of a debacle. So we chose to have a 3-tier cake that was Mickey Fetti cake flavor and cookies and cream filling. So it was like the gray stuff. And we were really, really excited about it. And turned out on our wedding day, we did not get a 3-tier real cake. We got a 3-tier kind of wooded cake that was decorated. It was pretty, but it was not what we ordered. And the cake flavors were completely wrong. So it was a vanilla cake with a cream cheese filling. So we were not thrilled about it, but we went with it. None of my guests knew any better. They thought that was the cake that we ordered. And I didn't make a scene at the reception, stay calm. And then when we got home, I spoke to my wedding coordinator and explained kind of the decoration was wrong. We didn't have a real cake. The cake that we ordered wasn't the flavor and the filling that we got. And so we worked with them and they were very, very apologetic. They said it's never happened before. So hopefully it doesn't happen to anybody else. But they did give us a refund for the mix up. But just full transparency, our favorite flavor was the Mickey Fetti with the gray stuff filling. Unfortunately, it's not what we got, but we had it prior to the wedding, and that was our pick. My husband also loved the carrot cake with the cream cheese filling, so that was his second choice.
Wow. I mean, I've been doing this show for 13 years, and I've never heard of somebody getting the wrong cake. That is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I'm one of those people that say if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. But like I said, we rolled with it. We didn't alert the guests that there was anything wrong, and we dealt with it when we got home. So it didn't ruin our day, it didn't ruin our wedding. But it was definitely one of those things that was, everything went perfect except that one little piece. But they have a lot going on. There's a lot of coordination that goes into a Disney wedding. So if that's the worst thing that happened, we can handle it.
Huh, okay. Did you guys add any other events around your day, like a dessert party or a welcome party?
We did not. We did some impromptu things. A lot of people flew in sometime on Thursday, so we all met up on Thursday night and went to Epcot. And then Friday, after the reception ended at 12:30 p.m., a group of our guests and us, of course, met at the Magic Kingdom around 7 p.m. and watched the Happily Ever After fireworks together as a kind of, cap of the day. And then we had a separate group that we all went to Epcot together on Saturday. So we spent time together, but we didn't do any formal events because we wanted people to have the flexibility to not have every minute of everything planned for them and the option to join us if they wanted to and, do what they wanted if they wanted to.
Okay, great. Can you give my listeners a timeline of how the wedding day all fit together?
Sure. It was a long day. Hair and makeup started at 1 a.m. and we had to be dressed and ready out front of the Grand Floridian for pickup at 5:20 a.m. Our photos, so we had a photo session included in the Magic Kingdom wedding package. So our photos were from 5:30, the bride, and I chose to bring my bridal party with me for those photos. Some brides do, some brides go alone. I brought my bridal party with me. So we had 15 to 20 minutes of photos of the bride and the bridal party. And then Kyle and I had our first look. So we also had Cinderella's carriage. I don't know if I mentioned that before. So they brought Cinderella's carriage in front of the Magic Kingdom and they hid me behind a column at the castle and they lined Kyle up and then they snuck me out to tap him on the shoulder for our first look. So that was in front of the carriage, in front of the castle. We did our first look. Then we took some pictures of just Kyle and I. There are some pictures of Kyle and the groomsmen. So there was a lot of picture taking. And then my mom and I were picked up by the carriage at 6:45 and we got to ride the carriage all the way down Main Street and then back in the staging area where the parade floats normally end. And we waited there in the carriage while a trolley picked our guests up and transported them down Main Street to the ceremony site, to the East Plaza Garden. Then once everybody was seated, that was around 7 a.m., they had Kyle and his mom walk the aisle, and then the groomsmen, and then the bridesmaids, and then my mom and I rode back up Main Street in the carriage. And then we departed the carriage right where the aisle started. And the ceremony started exactly at 7:15. It lasted until about 7:45. And then we had another 15 minutes of group photos in the park from 7:45 to 8 a.m. And then they loaded our guests on a shuttle bus. And Kyle and I had a separate SUV and they took us over to the Contemporary where they started the cocktail hour for our guests. And Kyle and I had a private room with the same selection that the guests had, but we were in our own private room until we were formally announced at the reception. So our reception was 4 hours. So it was 8:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. So it was a total of 4 hours. And it went by like you blink your eyes, and it was the 4 hours was gone. It was amazing.
Huh. Okay, so out of all of this, what ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
The carriage ride was my favorite memory. The carriage ride up Main Street with my mom to the ceremony location was absolutely priceless. We had a wonderful conversation. It was some time to actually sit, reflect, and take everything in. This dream that I've been dreaming of for over 30 years is I'm actually living it. And then the ride back with Kyle after we were married was another magical time where we got to sit, together for the first time as a husband and wife, and it was just the two of us. So that was just nice time spent and nice time to take it all in. I will say on the way back with Kyle, we caused a lot of commotion because by that point the park was open. There were a lot of people that wanted to know what was going on in Cinderella's carriage as it was going down Main Street. Um, so we played along and we waved and said hi to people. But the carriage ride really was my favorite, most memorable experience of the wedding, just because it gives you that time to take it all in and realize that it's real.
That's amazing. When you guys were planning, what were some of the most important aspects where you focused your attention or your budget?
My number one was to be in the Magic Kingdom in front of the castle. And so I was willing to compromise on almost everything else. My number two was Cinderella's carriage. And so they were my two non negotiables. And we were able to work it out that I could have both. And the other top of mind thing for me, and I've now been told I shouldn't have thought about it at all, but I did, was the guest experience. So I kind of tried to plan so that it didn't eat up a big chunk of the time that people were taking to travel and visit Disney. I wanted to make sure that everybody had time to do things other than just going for my wedding. In hindsight, I've now been told it was your event, it was your day. We would have done anything you told us to do, but I tried to be very mindful. So they were my top three were I had to be in front of the castle, I had to have Cinderella's carriage, and I had to keep the guest experience in mind while I was planning. I'm also a planner by trade. That's my full-time job. And so that may also kind of work into why my thought process was what it was, because I plan large events in my daily life.
That's interesting. Okay, so then were there any aspects that were less important where you saved your money or just your effort?
There were some things that we could have done DIY or an outside vendor or bring ourselves. And my now husband was very concerned that I was going to take on too much if I did that. And so he virtually insisted that we let Disney do everything because Disney's the experts and they do this every day. And so I did not DIY anything. The only things that I brought to the wedding were photos for memorial chairs. Other than that, Disney did absolutely everything. And while it's probably a little more expensive than, the DIY, if you're an out of state bride, I definitely recommend letting Disney do it because there was a lot less stress and I knew everything was taken care of. And I had one contract for everything. So I didn't have to worry about a florist contract and a DJ contract and a linen contract. Everything was all in my Disney BEO. It was one contract and it included everything. So I'm glad that we did that and let Disney, take care of all of the planning.
Got it. Okay. Was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about, and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
One of the concerns that we had was it was going to rain, in which case we had an alternate ceremony location in the Tomorrowland Terrace. However, I wasn't thrilled with the view from there. I mean, you still see the castle, but it's not the angle that I wanted. So I did worry about the weather. Thankfully, the weather was absolutely beautiful and turned out not to be a concern at all. I was very worried about my dress arriving and being okay. So I actually ended up shipping that with an Apple AirTag in it. So I knew where it was at all times because I was very nervous that something was going to happen with my dress. It did not. It went completely seamlessly, but that was a big worry. I was worried that I was not going to get any sleep before the wedding, given that hair and makeup was starting at 1 a.m. That worry came true. We got about a half an hour of sleep, but then the adrenaline was pumping, so we were all fine and we made it through. I will say, because I trusted Disney and their experience and that they do this every day, I was a very calm bride and I did not bridezilla once, which my husband waited for the entire planning time. He waited for me to break, but I didn't. I just kind of knew that Disney was in control and that they had, everything under control, minus my little cake snafu.
Then is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
I think the only thing I would have done differently is I would have splurged a little bit and had Mickey and Minnie come for the cake cutting. That's the only thing looking back that I said, maybe I should have done that. But everything else, I was just thrilled and over the moon with. Yeah, that's the only thing I look back and say, maybe I should have done, Mickey and Minnie for the cake cutting. But other than that, there was nothing different that I would have done. I really can say I lived my dream.
That's wonderful. Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
I think it's probably cliche, but it really does go so fast. So take some moments as a couple to really take it in and enjoy it because it flies by and everybody tells you that and you think, yeah, but in my case, we started at 5:15 in the morning and we ended at 12:30. Like that's a long time. It really was not a long time. So take some time, as you're going through each piece to really take it all in and appreciate what's happening because it's magic. It really is magic. And even my guests have now said to me, that was a once in a lifetime experience that you gave us, which is really nice to hear because I thought I was making it all about me. I had bride guilt, but that's my best advice is to take it all in. And the other advice is don't sweat the small stuff and know that Disney has it under control. They do this every day. So you might not get, a response back same day or the next day, but your coordinator will respond and they will walk you through every step. So know that they're there and know that they know exactly what they're doing. And I can say I made a change 3 days before the wedding and they were able to accommodate it and make it happen. I changed my cake topper. I had originally bought the Disney Parks porcelain cake topper, and that was the one we were going to use. We were going to bring it with us. And then I took a really good look at it, and it's really not Cinderella's castle. It's like a mix between Disneyland and Disney World castle. So it's a mix between Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella. And I said, you know what? With everything going on and the castle being the focus of the wedding, I want to go for the white chocolate castle cake topper. And it was 3 days before the wedding. and they were able to accommodate it. And that was the one thing on my cake that they got right.
Oh, gosh.
Go figure. And it was beautiful. And even though it's white chocolate, I will say I was able to transport it home from Florida to New Jersey without breaking it. And it is now in a keepsake dome. And it looks just like it did the day of the wedding. I mean, it's only been a month and a couple days, but fingers crossed, it actually is savable if you want to save it.
That's great advice. Well, Jen, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World. And I appreciate your taking the time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.